morning. I'm Lori Adrian, and welcome back. This is always a happy day. This is always a happy day because we get to see you all back as we prepare to welcome our students. And we have a day to learn together, talk to each other, and catch up. And then as well as really begin to talk about some best practices when you have your department meetings. So I guess to warm us up, I thought it'd be fun for the next minute, and I asked Lila to time us because I'm sure we could use a lot more time. If we could ask some people to get us started, and let's try to say good morning in as many languages as we can. And so I'm gonna cue some, and then at the end of it all, so far I have Spanish, Vietnamese, Filipino, Portuguese, French, and Bangla. And so if there are some of you in the audience that speak it in another language, we encourage you to follow suit. So Angela, get us started in Spanish. Okay, pay attention. Buenos dias. Okay, how about Vietnamese? How?
Xin chào.
Xin chào. Okay, how about Filipino? Leonora.
Magandang umaga, everybody.
Magandang umaga. All right. How about Portuguese? Mitch.
Bon dia.
Bon dia. Okay, how about French? Judy? Bonjour. And how about Bangla here from Bangladesh? Mabub. Shuma Santa. I think I have Tom raising his hand.
Korean.
Okay.
Annyeonghaseyo.
Yeah. Thank you. We need more practice for that one. And we have Kate. German. Guten Morgen. Okay, we.
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. Who else? Yes. Italian. Buongiorno. Thank you. Who else?
Good morning, May.
Who else? I didn't hear that one. Yes, we have back there. Please get up and say it. Let's. Humoron. I'm sure I didn't say it correctly. How about, is there another hand up there? Yes, please. Adnan. Okay. Say it again, please. Ende Lachu, Ethiopian. Okay. Eritrean. Kame Hadorkum. I probably didn't say it right. Thank you very much. So yes, please, Dr. Rios.
Serbian. Dobro utro.
Serbian. Say it again, please.
Dobro utro.
Sobro utro. All right. Okay, we have one more. Yes, Janice? Okay. All right. Hey, Janice, please do it again. Okay, let's try it. Morning. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, well, thank you so much for playing along, and I think we should probably document that. So, I want to get started by introducing some special guests and ask them to please come up to the stage and say brief welcome remarks. And I want to start with our chancellor. As you know, all of the flex days are taking place at the same day. And so our chancellor is having to run from one college to another. And so we appreciate him for being here, but more than that, we appreciate his support. And at this time, I'm going to embarrass him. As you know, in the last accreditation, there was only one commendation from the district team, and it's a commendation to the chancellor for his leadership. So thank you so much, Chancellor Weiss Fanning, and welcome to the stage.
The team exaggerated, and they were much too kind. I'm so glad to be here this morning. I want to welcome all of you to this great event for Coastline. It's interesting as the seasons change in California, the seasons change very subtly. But one of the big changes that makes it so notable is all of the students headed back to class. And on Monday, you're going to have the opportunity to meet many students for the first time, whether it's in person or in your online classes. And I just want you to think back to the time when you started your first college experience and what it felt like and how important it was to be touched by a faculty member or a staff member who made you feel welcomed, whether, again, it's in person or virtually, and how important that is and how meaningful it is to that student's college career. And so I ask you to just keep that in the back of your mind as we move forward. If you were here working during the summer, I hope you got at least a little break. If you were away for the summer, I hope you had a good break. In any event, I'm glad you're here. We've got a big year ahead of us, and I know it's going to go very well for Coastline. So thank you, and have a great year.
Thank you so much, Dr. Weiss-Fanning. And I agree. I hope that you had some time to get away. It seems like summer came and it's almost gone, and I have seen many of you working through the summers, but I do hope that you were able to take some time to re-energize and renew. We will now ask our governance leadership to come up one after another. So we will start with our very energetic and wonderful Academic Senate President for the coming academic year, or this academic year, Dr. Deb Henry.
Good morning, everyone. I want to introduce Yadira here, right, too. So Yadira right here is our right arm of our Academic Senate, the Academic Senate Secretary. Yay, Yadira. So I overtook the reins on July 1st, and we've already been quite busy trying to change a little few things. And one of my big interests is health and wellness and safety. And so we're all going to stand up for just 1 second and get the blood going through our body. Because if you haven't heard, sitting is the new smoking. All right? And I'm going to have to sit in meetings all this year, so in the middle of meetings that at least I run, we're going to take at least a 5-second thing and stretch out, all right, so you can get the blood moving, and that'll be at least one less cigarette in your body, all right? So you can stay standing. And, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. Anyway, our meetings, in case you don't know, are not every Tuesday, the first and third Tuesday of the month from 12:30 to 2:30 over at the College Center on the 4th floor. And everybody is welcome. If you're not a senator, which is a voted position, you're faculty, you are a member of the Senate, and your voice is really welcome to be heard. So I'll see you on Tuesdays.
Thank you very much. And Deb has moved her office to be near Yadira. Not me, by the way, but Yadira. So she's now located in the annex building, also very close to the faculty center, so that's wonderful. And I believe that our classified Senate President, Casey Hipmirashami, is here. Are you here, Casey? She's back there, but she's having some voice issues, and so I think on behalf of the Classified Senate, I'd like to call upon Yesenia Gonzalez, who was here to welcome us this morning.
Good morning, everyone. When I accepted my role as Vice President for Classified Senate, I was hoping that Casey would never ask me to run a meeting. Maybe I should have hoped for her never to ask me to speak on Flex Day. Again, good morning. My name is Yesenia Gonzalez. I am the Classified Senate Vice President. Our Classified Senate President, Casey, is not feeling well today, so I'm speaking on her behalf. Considering our unique campus and the fact that we don't really run into each other on a regular basis, it is wonderful to see every single one of you here today. It is always nice for us to come together at least once in a while. Although it is clear that we all collaborate in the effort to support all Coastline students, I would like to take the time to recognize the hard work of all classified members and encourage every one of you to continue your efforts for the benefit of our students. The Classified Senate Executive Board members, Amanda Wittrick, Alisa Martinez, Jamie Gurrell, Julian Miller, David Cisneros, Casey Hip, and I invite all classified members to our meeting today at 10:45 in the first floor Symphony Conference Room. I hope that today inspires motivation, ideas, and discussions around how we can better serve our students and staff members, depending on each and every one of our roles here at Coastline. I hope we all enjoyed today's event. Thank you.
You did great, Yesenia. So I'm going to kind of introduce some of our other guests this morning, and I want to begin with our keynote speaker, who will be introduced further later on, Dr. Victor Rios. Thank you so much for being here. And then our Vice Chancellor of Finance, Administrative Services, Dr. Andy Dunn. And then perhaps if you could hold your applause until I've introduced the rest. Not that they're less important, but just to kind of get us moving more quickly. We have our Vice President of Student Services, Dr. Kate Muller. Vice President of Admin Services, the beloved Christine Nguyen. The Vice President of Instruction, Dr. Vince Rodriguez. CFE Coastline Vice President, Kevin Donahue. Are you here, Kevin? And then we also have Natalie Natal, who's the LAOC Regional Coordinator for Guided Pathways from the State Chancellor's Office. So let's please give them a warm round of applause. Okay, so on your tables are handouts. In an ideal world, if I had more time, I'd go through my presentation and refer you to the handouts, but I won't have time for both. But I don't want the handouts to sort of go unnoticed because a lot of thought were put into it. And it will be messy because the order of your handouts is probably not the same as mine, but let's try to do it. Okay, so on your email, once you get to your email, I know you'll have hundreds of them, but you will find a President's Update, and then also today, as part of your handout, you have a Flex Day update to kind of get you caught up on some of the things that took place at the end of the semester as well as during the summer. And I want to thank Yadira for doing this, a newly discovered talent that we had, and so she has been working hard to do this. And then in your handout as well is our newly approved vision and mission statement. And as you know, this is what guides our planning and our decision making. So I hope that you will take the time to do that. The other one is a really neat handout that Aaron and his team puts together in terms of head count. You know, we always see ourselves as having a head count of 11,000. That's for the credit base, but if you look at this handout, it shows you that our head count is over 24,000. If I can get my glasses to make sure I can read this. So I think it's just an interesting way to take a look at our college, and the online is about 54% and down the road. And then it tells you a snapshot of our students, and then of course, the outcomes that we've had for the past year. So I do hope that you take a look at that. And then the online portfolio, and as I was looking through this, I thought, you know, the online college, the 115th online college, is trying to get started to launch their first degrees. But we have 32 fully online degrees and 30 certificates that are fully online. So we're still ahead of the curve, and I think we should use that to our advantage. And our success rate, core success rate, is 72, and we can continue to improve, but we can, it's about 2% higher than the state average, but I think we could aim higher than that. But the retention, I think, is pretty good. It's 85% retention. And it shows you some of the services that we offer. And I want to ask you to pay attention to this survey that was done in 2018-19, because I think this speaks to the wonderful work that each of you do, as well as the work that we do collectively as a college. So, and I think there was a pretty good response rate of over 2,000 students. And so they were asked about the top 5 reasons students choose Coastline. So well, I don't know if this is in order, but online programs is one of the reasons, course availability, campus locations, course quality, programs, and majors. And I think the 95% satisfaction is something that we need to take pride in. I won't go through, I think there'll be a session on student learning outcomes, and I invite you all, especially the faculty, to attend. That's going to be something that we'll pay attention to. There's a lot of other handouts, but the one that I kind of wanted is this page right here. So it says Division of Online Learning. This is an example of the wonderful work that's being done in terms of professional development. And I was really impressed and appreciative to see that there's a calendar. So you can really plan which ones. And as you could see, we have a leadership program that's a 6-month program. It's open to faculty, full-time and part-time, classified, and managers. And so I hope that's something. And then, as you could see, there is a first-year program now for faculty that has been designed by a wonderful faculty center coordinator, Stephen Barnes. And so I hope that you will look at this and see the richness of the professional development that's available to you. The yellow attractive piece of handout, again, shows you the work that our student life and student service is being done to welcome students. And so if you wish to participate, and then you do have a bio of our speaker. I'm sorry, I'm recovering from laryngitis, so I apologize if I have to pause every now and then. All right, got that? We'll have a quiz. So I expect you all to read this week. All right, now, how am I doing in terms of time, Lila? 25, okay, let's see if I can go through this really quickly. So ideally, this would be a presentation that will be done in collaboration with the vice presidents, but based on some time constraints that we have, I will be the only presenter, but I do want to acknowledge the leadership of the vice presidents, the deans, the academic senate, classified senate leadership, and our CFCE colleagues as well, and CFE. So thank you so much. So I thought I'll just outline, we recently developed a list of accomplishments and accolades that we submitted for the board to accept. And I think we ended up with like 27 pages and then trimmed it down to about 15 pages. So what I'm going to mention today are just a few. But one of the things that's a huge accomplishment from last year was that we had a successful accreditation visit, and we got reaffirmed for the next 7 years. So let's give everybody a big hand for that. And I especially want to thank Danny Pittaway as our faculty coordinator, Aaron Sentner for his support, and then also our ALO coordinator, ALO officer, Vince Rodriguez. Also, after 4 years, 2015 to 2019, the federal financial aid program review was completed. And we had to pay some money for late return of Title IV. However, I think although it was a difficult experience and a challenging time for us, there were a lot of really good outcomes. And the two in particular is that I think there was greater awareness about the importance of regular and substantive interaction and how to ensure that our classes and faculty are ensuring that there's regular and substantive interaction and that the rosters are cleared and that students who may not show up or who may have dropped are cleared from the roster, because that has an impact on some federal funding that we reserved. And research shows, if you go to the Center for Community College Research, for example, you'll see some of the research that shows a strong, if not direct, correlation between regular and substantive interaction and course success. And so even though our success rates can continue or should continue to improve, our success rates did go up from 72.3 to 73.9. And this is an average of all the different modalities. It tends to be higher in site-based and lower in the online, and so I think that's a great accomplishment for us. We also increased the number of degrees by about 7.5%, and we look forward to having that increase some more with some auto awarding that we hope will take place, or we expect will take place this coming year. And we not only increase the number of degrees, and that is the associate degrees, transfer degrees, but we also increase the number of certificates. And that is really important because, as you know, we switched to a performance-based funding. And so especially the associate degrees and transfer degrees are rated higher than your certificates. But every degree is really important. And then thanks to the marketing department, I know Dawn is probably still outside on her team. Could you raise your hand, marketing department? They've been working really hard, and so we not only launched a new brand, and so today you have t-shirts with a new logo and everything, but they also launched phase 1 of the website. So phase 1 has focused on making sure that the student-facing pages are accurate and up-to-date. Well, that's the same thing, accurate and up-to-date. But anyway, but they will be a continuing work. And so also, thanks to Aaron and his team, the CTE, Nancy, Toby, and I know that Deb and her team were busy working on grants, but we have increased grants by about 12.9%. And there's many, many grants, but some of the things that I want to mention is because we serve a large number of incarcerated students, I think we also then, as a result, serve students that are formerly incarcerated, and now we are able to serve them in a more formalized way. In fact, yesterday we did our final interviews for a full-time counselor that will focus on serving incarcerated students. Also, we never had mental health counselors. I want to thank Dr. Mahler because now we have 2 part-time mental health counselors available to our students. Toby and her team, and that's the cybersecurity team, Nancy, Brandon, have been busy. Mary, they're always doing something for middle school students, high school students, our college students, and so Gen Cyber is just an example of a really prestigious award related to cybersecurity. And I do want to highlight Umoja. How many of you are familiar with Umoja? All right. So that's a really great program, a learning community that supports, well, first and foremost, you know, it's known as serving African American students, but in the end, all these programs serve all our students. And so I want to recognize Dr. Dana Emerson for her leadership. Our district, by the way, this is a district-wide program, and so Golden West, which did not have a Umoja program, will now have it as well. Well, OCC has had it for a while, and we will have it. And so, and leading the district team would be Dr. Dana Emerson. And so, congratulations on that one, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity to see how that might be applied to our online students and even our incarcerated students. Dr. Shelley Blair and Renate Atkins have been working on this growing leadership from within. So this program called Leadership Innovating Together for Tomorrow. And the first cohort of graduates was from last year. Raise your hand for those who were in the LIT program. And so this year, there'll be another 12 who will be participating in this. And the idea is that hopefully all of us at the college will have gone through it. And I think that those who went through it learned a lot. And then we implemented a very robust professional development, and some of them are outlined in here. I just want to call your attention to 2. Again, the Faculty Center for Innovation and Teaching and Learning 2.0, maybe it's 3.0. As you know, we started this about 3 years ago. We used to have part-time faculty that led it, and that was great. But now we have a full-time student success coordinator, and for those of you who have been in the faculty center and looked at the program that's offered, really we must thank Stephen Barnes, because he has single-handedly redesigned even the orientation program for new faculty. So thank you very much, Stephen. So do stop by if you haven't been there. There's tacos on Tuesdays. So you can see me there. You'll see me there on Tuesdays for sure. And then Aaron, a lot of this first online data coaching, and then we went through a really wonderful training, exceptional training, learning how to identify signals for change and being able to forecast the future, so we're always ahead of the curve. And Shelley Blair led that effort, and so we look forward. There were 32 people in this room that attended the training, and we all got our certificate, but we hope that this is something that we can continue and that all of us will be better forecasters of the future so that we can continue to be innovative and ahead of the curve. And then we also received our Hispanic Serving designation. And why is that important? It's important because it recognizes that our Latino students is a growing population, and now we are eligible to apply for some grants and services that would not have been available to us if we didn't have those designations. And then the next page is just a list of, and this is just a partial list, and Dawn, I think, probably publishes this a lot, but just some of the things to mention. Since the Aspen Institute for Excellence was established, we had always been on the top list of top 150 community colleges in the nation. So I think that we got recertified for being the Center of Academic Excellence for Cyber Defense Education. We lead in the OEI course exchange, and we were again voted number 2 nationwide in terms of a most promising place to work. And so, and others, including that we continue to get accolades for being a military-friendly school and best for vets. So now, going forward, so congratulations to all of you. I appreciate all of you for the things that you've done and continue to do for our students. So, okay, for the coming year, what are some of the things that we will consider and work on as our priorities? One, as you know, there's been a lot of work being done on guided pathways. How many of you here have been involved in guided pathways for one form or another? Okay. Hopefully, pretty soon, it'll be everybody's hand going up. So thank you to Josh Leventius and Shelley Blair for leading us in that effort. But I am anxiously and eagerly awaiting fall 2020, during which we will launch and implement some of the guided pathways ideas that have been thought about a lot, considered, and will be presented, by the way, beginning this fall semester, so that we can, by fall 2020, implement some of those. This is really intended.
To please move his car. He's got his keys, his car's.
Okay.
So can Hiromi Yagatashi please move their car? Yeah, your car's locked and they can't move your car and it's in the way. If you could go do that, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. We'll save your seat for you.
All right. Thank you, Anne. Yeah, certainly we don't want your car towed. Okay, now back to guided pathways. Before Anne rudely interrupted me. I love you, Anne. So while we got accredited for the maximum number of years, there was one compliance recommendation that has 2 parts in it. So as you know, we were doing really well with SLOs. In fact, we were commended for the way in which we were collecting SLOs when we had, what is it called now? Seaport. But then as we transitioned, and I think Josh and Aaron led us through that difficult transition using Canvas. The team found, however, that we were not meeting what we thought the progress that we had projected, and that there were still a significant number of courses and programs that were not being assessed. And then not only the assessment piece, but making sure that we document the dialogue that takes place and the improvements that result as a product of those assessments. And so that's one area, and I think that our SLO coordinators, Stephen Foss and Angela Holbrook, will be very busy working with you, and so we ask your support and attention to this matter. The second part of that compliance recommendation, when they pulled several syllabi, they found that they were not accurate, that they did not reflect the current SLOs that the college had agreed upon. And so I think that's an easy fix, and I'm counting on Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Zentner to be able to provide a solution through Canvas. So I think we need to submit a follow-up report by October 2020. So the other one is implementation of AB 705, and so a shout out to our math faculty, Dr. Fred Felden, Mitch Alves, Lisa, Howe, and others, as well as our English faculty, because that is a major transformation. How many of you are familiar with AB 705? Okay, so we need everybody's hand up in this matter too, so I hope that you talk about this in your department meetings, because it's a major change in terms of the requirements for students. We're no longer requiring courses for them to take courses below college level, but in order for them to succeed, there's also a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure that they're supported so that they can succeed. In the President's CAB bulletin, you will find a rendering. I thought about it, we should have brought one. So we are going to be groundbreaking for the new Student Services One-Stop Center in the fall 2020. And so I think that's an exciting development, and soon we will be able to serve our students in a more streamlined way. We're also on the last year of our educational master plan, and so the planning department, Aaron's area, will lead us through a educational master planning. We have relied primarily, okay, I have 10 minutes, so I gotta speak faster. We have relied primarily our contract ed on military students. As you know, there's been a lot of developments in that area, so expansion of the ELD portfolio, continuing work on the website, as well professional development, resource development in terms of making sure. One thing I wanted to call your attention to is, as you know, there's been a lot of research and articles about the large numbers of our students who are food and home insecure. So many of our students come without food, without having had food, and they don't know where their next meal is going to come from, and they don't know where they're going to sleep because they don't have secure housing. And so we have expanded our food pantry thanks to EOPS and the veterans. So that's something that we'll continue to pay attention to. And implementation of enrollment management initiatives. And so we've been very lucky to have been able to exceed our targets and make some contributions to the district-wide FDES. But this year is going to be most challenging, especially. So there's a lot of things here that I've outlined, but I want to pay attention to asking you to please help us increase retention. Make sure that the students who have joined us and who have enrolled are retained. In a Houdini study that Aaron did a couple of years ago, we found that a large number of students that equated to like $3 million were lost because they either did not persist from the time they enrolled to the first day of classes, or that they went to the first day of classes but dropped after a census, right? So some of the strategies are outlined in here. I'm not gonna go through them because I don't have time, but I will just wanna say, I think one of the simplest one is get to know your students, know their names, be able to refer to them by their name, and be able to send them nudges. And we have Starfish, we have Civitas, And we also have the phone and the email. So if you could just, let them know when they're doing really well, and if they need some assistance to be able to refer them to services. Okay. Finally, I just want to tell you about some of the organizational changes that took place. So this is only between spring, when we ended spring, to the present. So I want to introduce this groups by group, and if you could hold your applause until then. Our new full-time faculty, we have 3. We have Christina Wynn, Ela Farahat, and Kelly Rupert. So Christina Wynn is communication, Elaf is health science. If you could please stand, and then Kelly Rupert will be geology. Welcome. Thank you very much. Music to my ears. Christina and Josh were busy working on an online public speaking class, and they filled up really quickly. So thank you so much. No more barriers for a transfer AA. So new managers, Bethany Tumbleson and Charmaine Harrell. Where are you? Okay. And we have new classified professionals, Allison Carlock, admin assistant, Michelle Edison, area facilitator, please stand at Garden Grove, and Shanique Barber, instructional load and pay analyst. Congratulations. And again, I want our SLO faculty coordinators to please stand, Stephen Foss and Angela Gomez-Holbrook. And I encourage you to please attend the workshop. And I was looking at Josh, and Josh is smiling from ear to ear. I wonder why. So some organizational changes during the summer. We had been working on this for the past year, but they've finally become a reality. So the Division of Innovative Learning, led by Shelley Blair, had some changes. So Nate Harrison, who used to work for ELD, is now the Director of Online and Distance Learning. Cinda Ta is Division Office Coordinator. Cody Pontius is Educational Technologies Associate. Kim Bowie is Program Coordinator, Guided Pathways. And there is a search pending for the Director of Online Learning Design. And this is all to be able to provide better support for our faculty as well as our students. There's also been a reorganization and extended learning. As you know, our outstanding Executive Dean, Joycelyn Groot, retired after almost 39 years of dedicated service to the district and the college. So the person who will be leading extended learning is Charmaine. We introduced her earlier. She's interim dean, and a permanent search is pending. We have Diana Agag Maxwell, who was upgraded to contract ed program coordinator. Vicky Kleppy, contract ed associate. Savannah Almanza, contract ed associate. Laura Hayes, and Tracy Fomprasak. I probably butchered that name. I apologize, but they're all been upgraded to contract ed associates. So, and before, extended learning used to report directly to me, but we're going back sort of a structure that worked really well for Coastline, and they will be reporting to our vice president. So I just want to end with some thank yous. So today is brought to you by the wonderful Flex Committee led by Professor Ann Holliday, who was worried about this, so please tell her everything is cool and wonderful, and then also Shelley Blair. The Flex support staff, Kim Bowie and Juan Pena, registration staff, Joan Hayes, Nick Salcedo, and Suzanne Blake, Aaron Zentner and his staff. The President's Office, I am so lucky to have 2 wonderful people that support and work with me every day, so I do want to thank Lila Mertz and Yadira Lopez daily. The marketing department, the IT staff, online and distance learning staff, business office, hey, maintenance and operations. Let's give a special recognition to them. And I'm so happy that they're able to join us. And of course, all the presenters. I think I did it in time. I even have like maybe, hey, I have 2 minutes. So anyway, I now would like to call Shelley Blair to introduce our distinguished keynote speaker. Thank you so much, and I look forward to spending time with you today.
Thank you. If there are open seats at your table, could you just wave a hand for me? Wave a hand with a number of seats, like it. That's what I remember we doing at church. We'd be like, 2 here, 1 here. There's 2 here. We got 1 up here, 2 here. So everybody come on in and sit down. Hey, Cindy. We do have numerous seats up here, over here. Great. Thank you. Nobody wants to sit at Lori's table here? Nate, is that an open seat right there? There's an open seat. So, Cindy, there's 1 here with Cheryl, the table she's at. There's 2 over here where Dr. Adrian and Dr. Zentner are. It's nice and cozy in here. So I have the distinct honor to introduce our guest speaker on behalf of our Guided Pathways, Coastline Pathways Coordinator, Josh Leventis, and myself. We're really excited to have Dr. Rios here with us today. As we continue to reform our college with the goal of improving our student success, we want to make sure that we're looking around for new ideas, as well as looking within. With that in mind, we selected our speaker for his expertise in cultural responsiveness, emotional support, and resilience in students. Our goal is to infuse his research into the design team proposals that are being presented as part of Pathways this fall. Can we go ahead and shut those doors, please? Thank you. Dr. Victor Rios is the Dean of Social Sciences and a professor of sociology at UC Santa Barbara. He received his PhD from Berkeley in 2005. He worked with local school districts to develop programs and curricula aimed at improving the quality of interactions between authority figures and youths. Using his personal experience of living on the streets, dropping out of school, and becoming incarcerated as a juvenile, along with his research findings, he's developed interventions for marginalized students aimed at promoting personal transformation and civic engagement. These programs have been implemented throughout Los Angeles. Dr. Rios has also been featured in the Chronicle of Higher Education, TED Talks, the Oprah Winfrey Network, Primer Impacto, and National Public Radio. He had the honor of meeting President Obama and advising him and his administration on policies about gun violence and policing. His TED Talk, Help for Kids the Education System Ignores, has garnered over 1.4 million views, and he's the subject of a documentary called The Pushouts. This afternoon, Dr. Rios will also lead a follow-up session aimed at sharing practical strategies with our faculty that help them to work with students that have been left behind. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Victor Rios.
Thank you. Well, good morning. Buenos dias. And all the other languages. I didn't memorize them all. Hey, listen, I feel like I smoked 10 cigarettes already sitting down. So, and you're probably going to feel like you smoked 100 cigarettes while you're listening to my talk. So I take that very serious. Now I'm a little paranoid about sitting down. So why don't we stand up and stretch out a little bit? Go ahead. Yeah, just stretch your arms. If you know yoga, do a yoga move, you know. Maybe you could teach people around you to, yeah, there you go. Touch your toes, stretch out that back. I don't know, stretch your leg. Other leg. Raise the roof. Someone's raising the roof over here. Test your balance. All right. It's really good to take breaks, and you know, the all this research on the human kind of learning, right? People can't really learn past 15, 20 minutes chunks of time sitting down, right? So like the future of higher education, I believe, and actually the future of K-12 education, it's really like a TED Talk style, where you show up, you do, you know, your kind of little 15-minute thing, and then you switch out to group stuff, you know, going outside, you know, figuring other activities. And actually online teachers know this well, because really effective online teachers don't just do a lecture, right, where you just, you know, like if it were, imagining you were sitting in a 45-minute, hour and 15-minute classroom and just lecturing, right? Quality online teachers divvy up the content. You got videos, TED Talks, YouTube, etc. Then you have yourself lecturing or going through your PowerPoints, your notes. That's not more than 15, 20 minutes. And then you have other material supplemental, right? I mean, I'm talking about the research on the quality online teacher, not your average online teacher. And I actually have a question to you before I start. There's a 10% divide, a 10% gap in the success rate. It's in one of the documents for your standard classroom and then your online classroom, meaning that 10% less students succeed in the online classroom. Anyone want to just take a guess? I don't know the answer, by the way, but anyone want to take a guess why that happens? Yeah, go ahead. All right, over there.
So at the previous school I worked at, the challenge was they had to log in, they had to read a bunch of boring material, then they had to follow the instructions, then they had to format the paper in APA style, then they had to put the information in on the questions. Just that process alone probably took at least 2 hours just to get started with it. So a lot of them looked at it and said, I don't want to do it.
Do you have a term for that? I do. Cyber gatekeeping, right? There's a lot of cyber gatekeepers out there. And if you really want to bridge that digital divide and that success rate, you got to figure out, like, how am I being a gatekeeper in cyberspace as well? We know the gatekeepers in the classroom. We know who they are, right? You show up, and this happens at my university, by the way. I know it doesn't happen as much at community college, but it happens at my university where it's a calculus class, it's a chemistry class, intro, there's 500 students, and the professor will say, half of you will not pass this class this quarter, right? That's a gatekeeper there. And there's so many practical reasons for doing that, but in terms of equity and inclusion, that's not the proper way to do things, because the people that are left behind are the people that have been disproportionately impacted by, poverty, by, not having enough income, by not enough educational opportunities, and then it turns out to be a racial and gender issue too in some of those STEM programs. Okay, so that's just one of the first sort of things to think about as we start to think about how we incorporate equity into both our physical classroom and our online classroom. And I boil down equity to emotion. Okay, so that's just my thing. When I look at equity, one of my measures that I look at in K to 20 education is I'm looking for emotional support. Because that measure right there is a powerful measure for getting close to understanding equity. Many times equity is an abstraction. You know, what is it? How do we define it? How do we problematize it? How do we create measures for equity? But for me, if you go through the emotional support process in the classroom, if that educator is being emotionally supportive, they're getting a little step closer to that equity model. They're getting a little step closer to being culturally responsive to their students. So boiling it down to emotion is crucial. And so that's my whole talk today, is emotional support. How do we provide it? What does it mean? And I always, just start with stories. And the reason I start with stories is because I come from a storytelling people, and stories, as the Native American author Leslie Mormon Silko would say, a word of caution, our stories are not just for entertainment. A word of caution, our stories are not just for entertainment. There's students you educate who come from storytelling populations, and that's how knowledge, intellectual knowledge, is passed down through generations. And so in many ways, we kind of have to honor those storytelling traditions if we want to reach students that we're teaching. And figuring out ways how to balance the academic content that's on the syllabus that needs to get taught, and then the emotional connection, right? And the cultural responsiveness. If you could do me a favor before I continue, for those of you that have your phones near you, or you're on your phone already as it is, if you could go to Twitter, if you have Twitter, if not, do a Google search, and just look at my handle, and look at what I posted, and just wind it up, get it ready, because I'm going to go back to what I posted later on, okay? So you don't have to look at it now. You keep on doing your other stuff you were doing on your phone. Just wind it up, because I'll bring it up again, okay? So that's my handle, at Dr. Victor Rios. And it's just a short little post about Coastline and how you will be ready for your students. All right, I'll get back to it in a little while. All right, so I'll get started. So what I want to start with is just starting with the basic statement that community college is often the final frontier of hope for underserved students. And I'm not trying to be cliche about it. I don't say this to K to 12 educators, and I talk to K to 12 educators all the time. I say high school is the final frontier of hope for underserved students. I'd be lying if I said that, because high schools are failing marginalized students at really egregious rates even today, right? The reason I say this about community colleges, though, is because you are one of the few institutions in society that are remaining institutions that will take literally anyone that signs up. And not only will you take people coming in, right? You're so bold that you're going into prisons now and finding people to educate. And so I was working with high school students that had dropped out of school, that had been pushed out in Watts. And it was for an entire summer. And I went back to their high schools and I said, hey, can we figure out a plan for them to get back in the fall? Oh, we don't want them anymore. They aged out. They're too old. So I went to the local community center. I said, hey, will you take these students, put them in a program? Do you have some kind of program? oh, we don't take those students because we want the ones with like a C minus that we could like show numbers for our grant funders. These kids we can't really show numbers with. Oh, okay. Where do I go? I went downtown LA to the community college there. Oh, sure, we got a program for them. So when I say that you are often the final frontier of hope for people that have been left behind, I truly mean it. My father's been teaching at San Francisco City College for 35 years. He has students that live under the overpass. I heard your president say, and I heard it clearly, she said there's students that sometimes can't afford food. So you teach some of these populations too, right? So as a final frontier of hope, whether you like it or not, you're like, oh, I signed up to teach a subject. I didn't sign up to be a social worker. Well, guess what? Part of the job, right, becomes serving populations that might need that emotional support. And you don't have to be a social worker to provide emotional support. And you could keep being that faculty, keep doing the passion of teaching if that's what you're passionate about. And through that passion of teaching, you could be emotionally supportive as well. You don't have to put on a social worker cap to support students. Right? It just comes, for a good educator, it just comes automatically. It's just part of the business that we do. All right, before I continue, I'll show you a short video clip of my own journey.
Now, another in our series on the nation's high school dropout crisis. Tonight, one man's journey from gang member and dropout to professor, and his efforts to keep other young men from making his mistakes. Ray Suarez has our American graduate story.
My name is Victor Rios. In 1994, this was me. I was introduced to the nation in a Frontline documentary. I was a gang member, a juvenile delinquent, and a high school dropout.
But in the 18 years that followed, Victor Rios earned his high school diploma, finished college, earned a PhD from the University of California at Berkeley, and wrote 2 books on his life and his research on juvenile delinquency. He now teaches sociology at UC Santa Barbara and helps at-risk youth navigate the perils of adolescence.
I'm sure you're closer to some people than others.
Rios is also a family man with a wife, Rebecca, and 3 children. Life is constantly busy.
To be this far into the future, I feel like I've lived 2 lifetimes. Okay, 2 lifetimes. Second chances. Oh, thank you. Think of yourself as someone that has the power to provide someone an opportunity to live a second lifetime. And those of you that are veterans, that have been around the community college for a while, you know that your students come in, they've lived an entire life. They could be like 19 years old, or they could be, 50 years old, and they've lived multiple lifetimes. And these multiple lifetimes, though, right, are lifetimes of not being successful. Lifetimes of being told you're never going to make it. Lifetimes of working menial jobs. Lifetimes of having to raise kids with no resources. Lifetimes of being dispossessed, right? So when they come to you, they're searching for a lifetime, a new one, right, where they can have an opportunity to really thrive in this world. Not just survive, but to thrive. And then as educators, then, our role is to help folks transition from something they know very well, which is resilience, survival, overcoming adversity, to now thriving, right, in the academic realm. And sometimes, we forget to acknowledge the roots from which our students come from. And we don't see their resilience or their survival skills as an asset for our education system. right? And so thinking about the ways to incorporate student stories into the physical, but also online classroom is crucial. And one of the ways to do that, and I'll talk about this in the breakout session later, more practical strategies, is by telling your own story. You're like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. There's a lot of skeletons in that closet. When I say tell your own story so that students can tell their story, so that then there's a human connection, right? You don't have to tell them everything about you. You don't have to tell them what motorcycle club you belong to on the weekends. You can. You don't have to tell them what you did as a teenager that's really embarrassing. You don't have to tell them about all your financial problems if you have them, right? What I'm talking about sharing your story is like just the way you select for your syllabi content. What textbook am I going to teach? What articles? What problems will I list, right? Online for students to practice with. Just the same way you're a curator of academic content, you're also a curator of story, right? And so you're curating what pieces of your story to tell, like the time when you thought you were going to fail that biology class, but then you decided to be brave enough to ask those random students that seemed a lot smarter than you, and you were afraid to talk to, but you were bold enough to step up to them and say, hey, is it okay if I study with you all? And you felt vulnerable because you thought you were going to get rejected. And they gave you a dirty look, like you ain't smart enough for us. But they allowed you in that group. And you worked hard to prove yourself to them. And along the way, they helped you, you helped them out, and you passed that biology class. Why not tell that story? Is that too personal? Sometimes as educators, we have to show that vulnerability. Right? So you curate your own pieces of your story to post online. It could be within, right, the parameter of the system you operate in for the college, or I personally don't post a lot about my personal life on social media, or it could be on social media. But that becomes your choice. But I'm encouraging you to start that process, right? Whether it's in the classroom, physically, or in the online classroom. All right. So my own journey begins when I'm very little. I had a mother that was trying to work full-time but couldn't make ends meet. My brother, he kind of took care of me. He was 7 years old, I was 3 years old, and my mom would have to go to work, and she locked the door from the outside so we couldn't get out of the studio we lived in. And this 7-year-old was in charge of making sure this 3-year-old was well-fed, entertained, and didn't fall out of that second-story window. It's a big job for a 7-year-old. It's a big job for a 7-year-old, right? And so then, he ended up kind of becoming my caretaker. That's how I saw him. He was like, to me, he wasn't a 7-year-old. To me, he was like an adult. So everything I needed, I relied on him. And that's kind of how our childhood was, where he would go to work full-time by age 14. He would put me through school eventually, right? And he didn't go to school until in his mid-20s. When he enrolled finally, we all kind of grew up, and he was done paying our rent and our bills. He said, you guys got to pay for your own stuff now, You guys are done with college, right? So he was only a few years older. He was like a father having to pay for all of us. He enrolls in community college, Chabot College up north, Northern California, and joins a program, the Puente program, and working full-time still. It took him 10 years of taking courses because he was just too busy, too stressed. He eventually transferred after 10 years at the community college, transferred to San Jose State, received an engineering degree, and now, with the support of that program, right, those mentors in that program, those professors that understood him at the community college, right, he's now an engineer for the city of Livermore, California. And you hear these stories over and over of students coming back and saying, because of your support at the community college, because of you being patient, even though I failed all those times, I made it. Because of your guidance and your mentoring, I am here today. So I ended up not doing so well growing up in this environment of poverty. The situation was so bad as a teenager. There's a lot of drug stuff going on, a lot of violence. Inside our home, things were bad. I had a little cousin. He was a little newborn. He was 2 months old, and he was my neighbor. And he's sleeping in his crib one night, and we had big rats in the house. And in the middle of the night, no one knew what was going on. It was dark. Those rats crawled on his crib, and they began to chew his face up. They chewed his lips, his gums, his cheeks. By the time his mom got up and realized what was going on, he was in a pool of blood. And at this moment in my life, I'm in 8th grade, and I tell myself, I don't want to be poor anymore. I'm going to drop out of school and get a job. I don't care what kind of job I get. So I ended up getting a job pushing lawnmowers at rich people's houses and making $1 an hour, $10 a day for 10 hours of work. And I didn't care. At least it was something. So there's this like intergenerational thing that happens, right, where my mom was exploited for her labor, right, cheap labor, and then I was going to grow up and be exploited for my labor, right? And that was just kind of like how the world operated in my world. But something had to change, right? That mindset had to change. The mindset of, well, I just got to survive had to change to, I got to figure out how to thrive as well. I got to figure out how to thrive. But I didn't know how to do this at the time. I remember being at this rich lady's house one day. She had they're pretty common here in this Orange County area in some parts. It's like a big 3-story house with a red Spanish tile roof. You go to the backyard and there's a swimming pool with a waterfall. There was even, at her house, there was even a statue of a little boy peeing in the pool. I go to the front of her house, and she rolls up in a baby blue Mercedes-Benz. Yeah. This lady was older. She had curly white hair. And she gets out of her car, and she's holding a little white dog with curly white hair. And I said to myself, when I grow up, I want this house. I want that swimming pool. I want that little boy peeing in the pool. I want that baby blue Mercedes-Benz, and I want that dog with the curly white hair. And if I work hard enough, I'll get the things I want in life. If I work hard, I'll get the things I want in life. It's the kind of American dream narrative. If you work hard, you get the things you want in life. So I had bought into this American dream narrative. Work hard, you get the things you want in life. But I was missing a piece, and that piece was education, right? I just thought that work was going to get me somewhere. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that a lot of the populations you teach come from the working class. And in the working class, you can be guaranteed that folks are taught a key lesson, and that's a hard work ethic. But we, as educators, we're not necessarily in the working class, right? Some of us might have grown up in the working class, but we're no longer in the working class. I mean, look at this. This is the middle of a work day. Well, start of a work day. We get to enjoy coffee and treats and sit. and think together, ideas. This is a very kind of privileged position to be in relative to other workers out there, right? Okay, so we're no longer in the working class, even though we might have grown up there, some of us. So we're in this privileged class, and so sometimes because we're in this privileged class, we tend to forget where we come from. We tend to forget where our students come from. When you forget where you come from, you end up forgetting where your students come from, right? And when you forget where your students come from, you have no connection to them. And then they end up failing when there's no connection. So, all right, so I'm trying to make money. It's not working. Making $10 a day, that's not enough. I eventually realized it's not going to get me anywhere, so I end up on the streets. And I end up hustling. I end up stealing cars. I end up in juvie. I didn't care because I didn't think I would make it to my 18th birthday. So I end up in juvie again. Third time in juvie, I still didn't care. Then one day, I'm out and about, other side of town. We get in a fight, my best friend and I do. We get in a fight with a group of our enemies. They pull out a gun. My friend started running, I started running, heard the gunshots, and my friend was killed. And at this moment, I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know where to go. The world had already labeled me a certain way. Right? This is me with a group of my friends. I'm on the very bottom with all black and a white hat, throwing up a gang sign. So the world had already seen me, and I had displayed myself as this gang kid. This is a group of boys I studied for one of my books. It's school day. One of them's holding, he's 14, he's holding a Hennessy bottle in his hand. So our society has a way of labeling populations that have been left behind. We're very good at labeling all kinds of, disproportionately impacted populations, right? And we always come up with new labels too, yeah? So looking at this population, right, the population that's on the streets, this population at risk, right? We know this term gets used. It's even written in the California Education Code, at risk. You see, the problem I have with labels is that what you label me determines how you will treat me. So if you label me a risk, you're going to treat me as a risk. So instead, right, I propose that we switch our language on how we label our students, whether it's the language of risk, the language of disability. Disability, right? That's like interesting, right, that we continue to use that kind of language, right? How about, uniquely abled versus disabled, right? And there's other terms. And you can just scan and take a look at how we label students, right? Whether they're having psychological barriers that they face, right? Really changing that narrative, because when we change that narrative, right, and think of our students through an asset-based perspective, it changes even the way we teach them. It changes even the way we teach them. Why am I talking to you about this? Because there's a big trend in California. It's decarceration. You're starting to see it and feel it and talk about it and get grants for it. This used to not be the thing, right? We spent an entire 40 years building up the prison state, locking people up. People like me, lock them up, throw away the key, lock them up, throw away the key, right? That was kind of the big thing. Politicians made careers off of locking people up. Now we started a new trend in California where we're like, wait a minute. You're a drug addict and you spent 20 years in prison for being a drug? That's not cool. Right, let's find a way to help you out. And, you stole a loaf of bread and got 15 years because you already had 2 felonies? That's not cool. Let's let you out. So decarceration is happening. And remember what I said at the beginning of this talk. You're the final frontier of hope. So where are formerly incarcerated folks going? To you. And you're starting to see and feel and sense and understand their presence. You're getting grants, right? This is a big kind of sign. So when these populations come to you, there has to be a different perspective that we take and understanding of them. Otherwise, we'll continue to label them and then set them up for failure. So changing the way that we even think about our students before we even set foot in the classroom to teach them. It's crucial. So going back to me and kind of not knowing where to go and where to turn to after my friend was killed, I ended up going to one person in my life that had told me she would help me. I went to school to look for my teacher. And walking down the hallway, I hadn't been in school for a couple months. And I'm walking down the hallway, and my teacher comes out. And she heard what happened to my friend, so she came to me. She says, are you okay? And I'm trying to be a tough guy, so I'm just like, yeah, I'm all right. And this lady, she taps me on the shoulder. And right when she tapped me on the shoulder, all my pain, all my fear, all my anger began to grow. And I began to cry like a little kid in front of the whole school. You know what this teacher did? She opened her arms. She gave me a hug, and she said, Victor, I am here for you. If you're ready to change your life around, I'll be here for you. But you have to do the work. So I thought about what she told me. I went back to school to talk to her about trying to graduate on time, even though I had dropped out for 2 semesters. She put me in 0 period extra credit at 6 in the morning. Lunchtime extra credit. And then in the evening, guess where she sent me? To you. To the community college. To catch up on my high school credits. Because you take anyone, right? So I get there. I'm trying to figure out this whole college thing. It was a tiny little college. It was known back then as Vista. Now it's Berkeley City College. It was just a little building, right? And I walked in there, but to me, it felt like I had walked in. At this time in life, I hadn't been to the Princetons and the Harvards and the Stanfords. But to me, it looked like it could be a Princeton, a Harvard, or a Stanford, right? And I walked in to that same building recently. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I saw this place, right, as a Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, because it's just as my daughters would say, a janky little building, right? It's just it still has the square little laminate, sticky tile on the floor. It's like a reception desk, but it's got a window. And then right away is the elevator, and then you go up, and it's just 6 classrooms on each floor. And that's the college, right? They moved to a new building ever since. But what I'm trying to say is that and this relates to you, because to me, I felt like it was an exclusionary, gatekeeping institution the minute I walked in. And it had nothing to do with the people that worked there. It was how I had been taught in my life that I did not belong in institutions like this. So when students are walking in physically or virtually into your classroom, what are you going to do to make them feel that you are not the gatekeeping ivory tower? What are you going to do to make them feel like they belong there? That this class indeed was designed for them, and that you, as a faculty member, as a teacher, that your purpose is to teach students just like them. Or is your purpose to teach Stanford students? You're in the wrong place. If that's your purpose, you got to go, publish some papers, You know, you got to go and re-credential yourself, right, if that's what you want to do. But if you're here, right, your purpose is to teach this population of students. Right? So I end up catching up with my credits. I ended up graduating from high school on time and with my class, with the help of my teacher, with her support, with her guidance. And right around graduation time, she says to me, "Victor, I'm so proud of you. I knew you could do it. Now it's time to go to college." College me, man, what is this teacher smoking thinking I'm going to college? Miss Russ, I'm going to be a mechanic, make $15 an hour, live a good life. The mindset, right, of survival is, I survived, I was making $1 an hour, now I'm going to make $15 an hour, I'm good in life. And you know how she responded to that mindset? I'll tell you how a pessimistic educator would respond, because I've heard them in K-20 contexts a lot. In K-12, I've heard them in the lunchroom. In higher ed, I've heard my colleagues just blatantly in faculty meetings, hiring committees, Senate committees, blatantly say this. And I'll tell you the logic goes like this. Well, these people, they just don't value education. They just like, they set their bar right here. Their bar should be here. 4-year degree. Post-baccalaureate degree. But these people, their culture, oh, and there's research papers on this, by the way. Their culture doesn't value education. These people should be, and this is important in your context too, these kinds of minorities don't know what they're doing. But there's another kind of minority that can show them, the model minority. Because they value education in their culture and in their family, and if only they were like the model minority. But there's a lot of research too that shows that the model minority stereotype harms Asian American students. It harms them. It limits their choices. It creates a stigma that's putting so much pressure on them. I mean, there's cases of suicide because of feeling this pressure. There's cases of just psychological barriers that come up, right? But I guess it's, for some might say, oh, well, that's better than being the minority that's told your people don't value education, right? Well, that's a myth. That Latino populations and black populations culturally in families don't value education. That's a myth. Folks know how to value education, but when you don't have an educational trajectory, when you don't have the supports in place to try to understand the system, then guess what happens? It looks like folks aren't valuing education because maybe they're so busy trying to survive that they forget how to, or never get taught how to thrive, right? And so as an education system, it is our task to try to teach folks how to thrive, not just survive. All right, so I'll tell you how Ms. Russ responded to my comment about being a mechanic, making $15 an hour. She went like this. She said, "You're going to college." Just how you laugh right now is how she laughed. She pulls out a piece of paper and itemizes 10 years from now how much money I need to make to live the life I want. Do you want a house or an apartment? I want a house. You want a car? Old or new? I want a brand new baby blue Mercedes Benz. You want kids? Yeah, lots of kids. Then she wrote down how much diapers and formula cost at Costco. I was like, oh, bring that number down, man. Bring 2 or 3. She multiplied that by 12, pulled out Department of Labor statistics, showed me what a high school graduate, 2-year graduate, 4-year graduate, et cetera, makes. And in that moment, a light bulb turned on. I had an epiphany. I didn't call it that at the time. I just said, oh, boop. Now I got to go to college. So I applied to college. A couple months later, I get a letter. Congratulations, you've been admitted to California State University. Couldn't believe my eyes. And I had been admitted under all these special programs. You name the program, I was in it. And I'm a proud product of all these programs, plus at the time they had affirmative action. It's been banned in California for a long time now. It was banned by the time I applied to grad school, but I am a proud product. I wouldn't have got into college without affirmative action. And so if we're going to think about really educating populations that have been left behind, we got to figure out how do we provide them opportunities without feeling like we're taking opportunities from others, right? It's not mutually exclusive. It's not like, oh, because we're giving these people opportunities, that means these people aren't getting opportunities, right? We provide opportunities for everyone. That's why I like guided pathways. And by the way, I'm going to come back to guided pathways in a minute. So everyone gets that opportunity. But equity means that sometimes you do have to focus on a population very specifically, that target group, for a bit, and still provide everyone else the services they need. Right? We meet people where they're at. So the letter, my college admissions letter said, congratulations, you've been admitted, blah, 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 all these programs. And right below it said, you've been admitted under academic probation. I didn't understand what that meant. I just knew one kind of probation, so I said, probation? I'm already on probation. That don't matter. Thought they were talking about criminal probation. Thought a guy with a can of mace was going to be following me around campus, making sure I wasn't trying to jack people. I got to college. It was tough. It was tough. And that transition, the transition from being on probation, having a criminal record, was really tough, right? There's so many obstacles that we don't even think about, like getting a job, having a record, like getting financial aid, having a record, like just feeling always like someone is surveilling you, like feeling like you as the professors are authority just like my parole or probation officer is authority. And so it's important to be in tune with how our students might feel like we're just part of one system, right? And sometimes we're like, wait a minute, how can that be? We're like educators. We're not police or probation officers. But because of the way authority operates in our society, and the powerless sometimes feel, right, that power is concentrated and that power is convoluted. And so in many ways, you do represent yet another institution that's there to fail them. So sometimes when you see students that are not responding to you, whether it's emailing you back, posting assignments, talking to you, coming to see you to office hours, don't take it personal. It's not about you as an individual. It really is about a system that's let them down their entire lives, really. So that was a tough transition, getting through, the whole probation thing, getting through college, while just trying to make amends for what I had done. I ended up working full-time, working my probation program, getting through college with all the help of all these programs. And I end up deciding that after all I've been through, I want to get the highest degree possible that I can. I applied to Berkeley to get a PhD. I didn't even know what a PhD was, by the way. Just applied. I got lucky, I guess. They admitted me. I don't know why they admitted me, but they did. Takes 7 years to finish a PhD at Berkeley, normative time. I was just hungry, literally and figuratively. I wanted to help my community. I was very inspired by Miss Russ. I wanted to go help other youth like me. I got to finish this PhD. It's just another obstacle for me to get through. 4.5 years after I enrolled in my program, in the year 2005, I became Dr. Victor Rios. Thank you. So, guess what I'm trying to say here is that emotional support is the key to student motivation and transformation. That when we learn to really, in our everyday interaction, in our postings online, and I gotta tell you, it takes a lot of energy to add the extra oomph in posting something for students. Okay, there's this important distinction between informational support and emotional support. Let me get back to that. But in your postings, you got to think about constantly, and I'll talk about that in the breakout session later too. Am I doing both informational support and emotional support in this posting, or is it just informational support? Informational support is easy. It's like, no disrespect, I mean, I thought it was very useful. All these handouts, that's informational support. Like, these handouts are incredible. Like, I learned a lot about your student demographics, your gap in the online versus the regular class. I mean, I learned so much from the handouts. Thank you for the handouts. That's good information, right? But the other piece, right, the emotional piece is also crucial, right? To make people feel like they're welcome, to make people feel like they belong. And then that's that yellow paper. So if you go to my post on Twitter, you'll see that I hashtag the welcome back hashtag that you have on the yellow paper. And I posted something that has really little to do with me. And so when I say sometimes you could post either, what's the name of your online system? Is it just one? Has it got one name? Canvas. Oh, that's easy. Canvas. So whether you're posting on Canvas and it's insulated from the public, or whether you're someone that likes to post online anyway, right? Think about real simple posts that would make students feel like you're thinking about being an educator, like you're thinking about teaching them. And so in that post, it's simple. It's just a picture of the program, and it's like, Coastline students, your faculty and staff will be ready to provide you the support 2019 to 2020, hashtag welcome, right? All right, simple. But why do I think it's crucial to do that? Because then the students start, you know they're looking at stuff. You know they're on Rate My Professor right now. You know that. And they're looking for that chili pepper. Where are the chili peppers? Raise your hand, chili peppers. Yeah, she's like, chili peppers. And then you don't have to, no more chili pepper, I know. Oh, it was being used inappropriately. Yeah, it was. Hey, listen, my wife's a professor, and I would see a lot of hot professor chili peppers for her. So yeah, you're right. That was like very, coming a little objectifying. Objectifying. I was just about to say objectifying, and you're like, man, I wanted one of those. 4.7, no chili pepper. No chili. But see, 4.7, that's great. Well, chili peppers, okay, what chili peppers rate my professor? Oh, you don't have to raise your hand, but you know, some of you, I'll generalize and say some educators out there can also write to Rate My Professor and get all of that stuff erased too. So we have that. So when students don't find you on Rate My Professor, they're assuming that you got yourself, right, deleted, right? Why am I bringing this up, right? The reason I'm bringing this up is because students are scanning cyberspace looking for you. Well, let them find you and let them find something, or if it's not cyberspace, it's Canvas, something that tells them, hey, I'm here, welcome. Hey, I'm here, you know, I'm ready to teach you and to learn from you. Hey, I'm here, I'm excited about being, and that'll make them feel like, oh, they're welcome, right? So there's no such thing as, oh, only when they come and see me can I make a human connection, right? It's out there, it's in cyberspace. All right, so emotional support equals meaningful contact, right? It's a first step to culturally responsive education. Now, I'm going to distinguish the difference between emotional support and informational support, and I did a little bit, so I won't spend too much time on this study we did in high school, but all to say is to show you that the lower income students are craving, hankering for, and reporting, wanting more emotional support than informational support. And the middle class students are reporting wanting more info. Just give me the handouts. Just give me the information. That's all I need from you. Just post the syllabus. I don't need all this extra stuff. Well, great. That's for your middle income students that probably might have parents that are educated either here or in other countries. Cool, right? Like, they get the support. They know how to work the system. Just give me the information. How do I pass this class? Where do I buy the books? Let's go. And then the other students are saying, low-income students, well, can I get a sense that I belong here? Right? It's like an existential question. Like, do I belong here at this college? Do I belong in your class? Do I? How do I know that? And that's where you answer. Right? Now, the science behind this is a pioneering study back in 2007. Neuroscientists scanned brains, and they found that the part of the brain responsible for learning is intricately connected to the part of the brain responsible for emotion. Learning, attention, memory, decision-making, and social functioning are both profoundly affected by and subsumed within the processes of emotion. This is not like the old school, where people would be like, just be nice to students. Well, I'm not here to be their friend. I'm here to be their teacher. That's old school thinking right there. Right? This is these kinds of studies. Right? That's like, no, they should just be learning. Like, I'm not, like, they want to make friends, they can go somewhere else. The problem is, and I always say this to people, I say, it's okay if you don't want to be their friend. I'm fine with them. But can you please be friendly to them? See, the distinction here is that you have to make them feel like they belong. You have to make them feel welcome. You have to make them feel emotionally supported. Otherwise, if they are going through frustration, anger, sadness, they're not going to be able to learn from you, physically or online. All right. So, I know that let me ask you a question. Who here is in charge of guided pathways? Who? And why are you looking around the room? You're like, everybody, other colleges have already rolled it out, right? You're still working on it, you 2020, good for you. Everybody, right, should feel ownership of guided pathways. And in a nutshell, right? You're all going to go through a lot of conversation about this, but in a nutshell, Guided Pathways is essentially providing everyone the guide for success and providing them the support and resources for them to get through that program that they're given. And we're all involved, because when that student comes, walks into school, they might run into you. You know, you're parking your Mercedes over here. Oh, my bad. We're educators. We don't have Mercedes, right? Some of us do. But Teslas, oh, wow. All right, good for you. It's like Tesla. Toyota. Parking your Toyota. What kind of Toyota? Is it the kind I used to steal as a teenager? Yeah, right. The Corolla? Right. Tercel? Celica, I love Celica. A GT? All right. So you're parking your Toyota, you run into a student. It's awkward for them and for you, but more for them. You got to remember power dynamics. Power dynamics is you are on top of the totem pole. Now, I run into a lot of educators that feel powerless in society because we're undervalued, underpaid as educators. So we feel powerless in society. But when you run into a student, right, get rid of that feeling if that's how you feel in society, because you are powerful to a student. And so in that, you got to own your power and be the first to greet and meet. Hey, how's it going? Parking your Toyota with pride. You get out. Hey, how are you? That's it. Oh, hey. That professor said hi to me. Oh, man. Oh, wow. Okay. My student, Mario Espinosa, finishing his PhD. He's going to be Dr. Espinosa soon. He got a $140,000 grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to study gay men living with HIV. Mario was a high school dropout, went back to community college after working full-time for a while, gets to community college, and he walks and he tells the story. He gets into the college, and he's walking down the path, and you know the guy in the golf cart? The guy in the golf cart, like the grounds people? That person? Groundkeeper? You know who I'm talking about. What's that department called? Maintenance? Do they have a golf cart on campus? Okay. Yeah, those people. So Mario's walking, and again, Mario tells the same story I tell. He thinks he's walking into Stanford, right? This is like a little community college in the Central Coast. And he's like, whoa. And the golf cart guy pulls up. He's like, hey, man, how you doing? Oh, trying to sign up for classes. Oh, yeah, come on. Takes him over there. And from that moment on, he feels like he belongs. Right? So that guided pathway, this is my point, should not just be information-based. That guided pathway should also be emotion-based. So how about emotionally guided pathways? Right? That when you're giving them here's your program, here's your toolkit, here's your support network, here's your syllabus, here's how you're going to transfer to the UC. By the way, every step of the way, we believe in you and we're here for you, and you need to find an office, we're going to help you find that too. And I'll smile at you once in a while, because you deserve that. So because of educators like you, I found a key. What key helped me out? Did my education and my mentors and my teacher help me find? Raise your hand and tell me. What key did my education help me find? Key to myself? Oh, the pool with the little statue of the little boy peeing in it? Mercy. The key to my potential? Self-confidence. Oh, fancy. Autonomous learner. Yeah. Lifelong learner. Self-empowerment. I'll tell you what key I found with the help of my teacher with the help of this emotional support I'm talking about. I graduated Berkeley on a Sunday. On a Monday, I was at the bank already asking for a home loan. I applied. A few months later, through that whole process, I had a key to a house. I drove to my mom's dilapidated apartment. You know, the one you walk up the steps and the whole apartment building kind of rocks back and forth. I knock on her door. She opens the door. She gives me that look mom gives after she hasn't seen you in a while. How you doing? How you doing, son? I was nervous. My leg was shaking. I reached in my pocket. I pulled out the key. I said, Mom, I'm sorry you had to wait 30 years for this, but here are the keys to a proper place to live. You see, educators, the point I'm trying to make is that you never know how that positive interaction, that emotional support in that one moment in time is going to provide a student a key to keep going, graduate, and become not just an autonomous learner, right, but just an autonomous individual in society, meaning that they're self-sufficient, that they can provide for themselves, their families, and that they can help their communities, right? So it's like a constant cycle. Like you're helping students, then they go out, they help themselves, they help their families, they help their communities, and then the cycle continues. You never know when just a moment can change a student's life when you're positively engaged with them. So like my teacher, she gave me that little 5-second hug. She never hugged me again after that. And that's okay. She never gave me more inspirational conversations. It was just saying, I'm here for you, and then she helped me with a program. But for me, that teacher will always be my life changer. And in the same way, you can continue being a life changer for students with those emotional support approaches that you implement. So some of these approaches, I'm just going to leave you with one actually, concept to work with. And then we can continue the breakout session from this concept. I call it educator-projected self-actualization. My teacher, right around graduation time, she said, you will have vice presidents. And I laughed at her. I was like, Miss Russ, you're crazy. And then in the future, right later on in life, I thought about it. I'm like, okay, she was projecting just the same way this projector is projecting for you an image. She was projecting for me a future that I had not even begun to imagine. Right? That's what educator-projected self-actualization. Now, you could project for your students a future that they have not even begun to imagine, right? So everyone saw me as this kid on the left side, right? This gang kid, this thug, when I was that age. But Miss Russ somehow saw me as the guy on the right, even though I was the guy on the left, right? Isn't that interesting? So she almost helped me create an image of myself in the future that I couldn't have created by myself. About 20 years or so later, I end up at the White House. I end up at the Domestic Policy Council, talking to Obama administration, gun violence and policing in America. I was in the Eisenhower building where they take care of business. And just like that building out there, I was kind of daydreaming because that was the Oval Office, hoping Obama would like wave at me. He never did. But then later on that evening, they gave me a ticket for an event at the White House lawn. And I don't know about where you come from, but where I come from, you give me one ticket for one person for one event, I'm bringing my whole family. So I brought my wife, my daughter, my other daughter, my son, and some random homegirl that lived in D.C. at the time. I don't know how they let us in, but they did. So we're rubbing shoulders with, Congress people, and all of a sudden, President Obama walks up, greets the crowd. I'm holding my 4-year-old son in my arm, and President Obama comes up to my son and I. He looks at my son, he holds up his hand, and he says to my son, "Give me 5. Don't leave me hanging." And my son, in that moment that their hands are touching, guess who I'm thinking about? Miss Russ. You really are crazy. Whoa. How can an educator, right, predict? I wouldn't call it predict. Project. Right, me doing that. Well, predictions, we're not magicians or fortune tellers, but we could be projectors. We could project. It's not your job to determine which of your students, especially when they're online, right? You can't determine which one's going to make it and not make it. You just show them all that support and project for them a future that they can't even begin to imagine. And when you do that, that process helps. It helps jumpstart a better future. And not all of them are going to make it. We know that, but we're not in the business again of deciding who will make it, who won't. We just assume they all will and provide them those emotional resources to make it. Okay, I had a lucky year that year because then later I was at Joe Biden's house having dinner. And then there's Dr. Biden. You know she's a community college educator, right? Okay. And then I went to the bathroom at their little home in the Naval Observatory. And they had little, paper towels with the seal of the Vice President of the United States. I grabbed one, I dried my hand, I opened my coat, put a few right here. I went and said goodbye and flew back to California. Hey, listen, you can take me out of Oakland, California, but you can't take Oakland, California out of me, okay? All right, so let's conclude here. So, in conclusion, we have to create a meaningful contact continuum of care where we're all together. Oh, no, that's for, that's for student services to deal with. That's for counselors. No, emotional support is all of us. The programs, the counselors, the mentors, the instructors, the faculty is crucial because I'm just going to tell you, my own faculty, right? We have a hard time figuring out how to provide that support. And it has to be a culture of supporting our students. At the end of the day, we have to believe in our students, and we have to show them we believe in them, whether it's in the physical classroom or in the virtual classroom. My mentors believed in me so much, they tricked me into believing in myself. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.